16,000. As you climb to flight level 280, you'll gradually decrease the autopilot vertical speed to maintain at least 250 knots. Airspeed is coming down. Autopilot vertical speed down to 2,400 feet per minute. $26,000. When approaching 27,000, you should lower your vertical speed to 1,500 feet per minute and leave the N1 at 90%. If you've done everything right, you should be well ahead of the criteria to be at 28,000 feet before 25 DME for the Olympia VOR. Confirm that the autopilot is leveling out at 28,000 feet. Right now, the airplane is 30 DME from the Olympia VOR. When you hit 25 DME, you'll set the autopilot altitude to 22,000 feet at about 2,400 feet per minute. "27 DME. When the airspeed reaches 280 knots, you should switch the autothrottle from N1 to speed. There's 25 DME. Autopilot altitude set to 22,000 feet. Autopilot vertical speed set to 2,400 feet per minute. $25,000. As you approach 22,000 feet, you'll decrease your vertical speed to 1,500 feet per minute. Now open up the GPS and change the waypoint to PAE, which is the Paine VOR. Leave it on the side so you can select the visual reference line when hitting the Olympia VOR. As you approach the Olympia VOR, keep an eye on the ADF needle in the nav panel. As it swings, you'll change the autopilot heading selector to anywhere between 8 and 10 degrees. You'll turn the autothrottle off, gently bringing the throttle down to idle manually. You'll tune in PAE on the GPS at a CTS of 006. You'll open up the radio stack and switch nav1 to 110.6. You'll switch nav2 to 113.4. You'll then change the course selector to 003. You'll change nav1 standby to 109.3, which is the frequency for the ILS. And then you'll change nav2 standby to 110.6. Autopilot heading selector on. Autopilot turn rate to 30 degrees. AP heading to 010 degrees.
You've done well so far on this flight. Your clearance now is to cross the Olympia VOR at flight level 220.
Throttle going
Then
down.
fly the 003 degree
GPS course to
Paine
PAE
VOR.
set.
Cross the Paine VOR at 3000
Nav 1
feet.
to 110.6. Nav 2 to 113.4. Course selector set to 003. Nav 1 standby to 109.3. Nav 2 standby to 110.6. Right now, the airplane is at 22,000 feet. You want to get to 3,300 feet. So you'll use the 3-to-1 rule, where for every 3 nautical miles flown, you want to descend about 1,000 feet. So 22,000 minus 3,300 is 18,700. Divided by 1,000 is 18.7, times 3 is 56.1. So you'll want to start descending at about 56 dME from the Paine VOR. Now as far as your descent rate, you'll want to take your estimated ground speed and multiply by 6, so 320 times 6 is about 2,000. Though for this check ride, we'll descend a little sooner. Airspeed coming down. Autopilot altitude set to 3,300 feet at about 2,300 feet per minute. Autothrottle speed set to 240 IAS and armed. Notice the main panel heading display. As you approach the Paine VOR, you'll make the proper heading corrections to center in on the 003 degree course to the VOR. If the needle is to the right of the center, then turn about 2 degrees more to the right to correct. If it's to the left of the center, then turn about 2 degrees more to the left to correct. As the needle approaches the center, turn to 006 to intercept and switch the AP nav selector on. Optionally, you could choose to switch the AP nav selector on now. However, it may exaggerate and cause you to fail the criteria to stay on course.